today's episode of Today in World War II, April 23rd, the Greek king, King George II, does a solid to all the Allied troops who defended Greece. The Luftwaffe starts what they call the Baedeker Raids in Tunisia. Two British servicemen win the Victoria Cross. Rommel writes Jodl that he's going to wipe out any Allied landings in France. And finally, Albert Speer admits to Hitler that he did not carry out any scorched earth tactics per Hitler's order. We'll see how Hitler reacts to that. Let's get started. Okay, so on April 23rd, 1941, King George II of Greece and Crown Prince Paul and Prime Minister Emmanuel Tsouderos were evacuated by the RAF to Crete, and there was an attempt now to evacuate all Allied personnel who were left to get them to Crete and to Egypt. So we're going on the end game here of, this very misguided support of Greece, considering all the losses that the Brits and the Commonwealth troops took. But I will say that, if I'm going to fight in a losing campaign or I'm most likely going to be taken prisoner or killed, or the ship I'm being evacuated on by the Royal Navy is sunk by the Germans, and I'm going to be splashing around in shark-infected waters in the warm waters of the Mediterranean, the Aegean Sea. If that's my fate, then I want it to be Greece, because King George II instructed that all of the wine in his wine cellar, and I'm sure it was a big cellar, would be distributed to all the Allied troops who had fought to defend Greece. I want to party with that king. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. On April 23rd, 1942, the Luftwaffe started what they called the Baedeker Raids. And this was named because there was a guide, a tourist guide called the Baedeker Tourist Guides of all the historical sites in Britain. And now I don't know if there's proof or not in German historical records, but it did seem like for about a 2 week period of time, they were specifically targeting historical sites in and around England. In this case, the Luftwaffe bombed Exeter, and that was the first attack. But we're going to see in the next few days, they're going to keep making those or attempting to bomb those areas. Now, luckily, there was no major damage to these historical sites, but it was a little bit suspicious. In Tunisia on April 23rd, 1943, there were two British officers actually who were awarded Victoria Crosses. One was Lieutenant Willward Sandys Clark. He was the only officer left alive after his company was almost wiped out in a German counterattack. He had head wounds, but despite that, he rallied his men and they captured three German strongholds before he was cut down by a German sniper. And of course, like I said, he was awarded the Victoria Cross. There's another Victoria Cross that was awarded to a Major John Anderson because he was the first man into three enemy machine gun positions, and he and his men were able to capture 200 prisoners. So, as you know, Victoria Cross is the highest medal for bravery in the British Commonwealth. It's the equivalent to the Congressional Medal of Honor. And on April 23rd, 1944, General Rommel, the Desert Fox, writes to General Jodl that he said that if he was given command over the nearby tank formations, the ones that were there but were not given command to Rommel, they were not given to von Rundstedt, they were being held under the personal command of Adolf Hitler. Rommel said that if he had those tank commands, that he would wipe out any Allied landing in France. On a completely unrelated note, if my Russian mother-in-law was a frog and she had wings, she wouldn't drag her ass on the ground when she tried to jump. And finally, on April 23rd, 1945, after sundown, Albert Speer He bid his final farewell to Adolf Hitler. I'm sure it was a very touching scene. I'm sure that they looked at each other's eyes as bros and they said, you know what? We did our best. We tried to wipe out the Jews. We didn't do it, but we got a lot of them, right? Came so close. He admitted to Hitler that he had blatantly disobeyed Hitler's commands to do a scorched earth policy to destroy Germany, all their historical sites, to leave nothing. And Hitler forgave him. How touching it is that the mass murderer shows forgiveness, as he approaches the end of his horrible, disgusting life to start a long ride in hell. Good for Hitler. Wow. Did I actually say that? Anyway, you guys have a good day, and I'll see you tomorrow.